Mm, there we go. Good morning, Hilary.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Wonderful. Really happy.
Amazing.
It's
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for
almost,
joining me today.
thank you for having me. It's almost 10 degrees cooler today, so that's always a happy day.
And it's been really hot there, right, in Cordoba?
Yes, it's been close to 50 Celsius. So it's now, today I think it was running around 38. So I said that's a blessing and it's something to celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hilary, I always like to start these types of conversations by asking this type of question. It is, at time of doing this, it is middle of August 2023. Let's pretend that we've just hit fast forward and it's now the middle of August 2024.
Okay.
And you and I are having a conversation, whether it's by coincidence or design, we're having a conversation. It's August 2024. And I'm asking you just how things are and how your life is and how your coaching is, etc. And in your words, you say, wow, that everything is just trending in the right direction. Everything's great. Your own internal growth, your external growth, everything is not perfect, but everything's moving in the way that you'd want it to go. And then I ask you, I say, what's your secret? Like, what do you know that maybe other people don't know? What's been the biggest difference maker for you? And you say, well, we had a call about a year ago, and there were some things that we spoke about in that call that were really important, really significant, and the things we spoke about in that call were probably the catalyst for everything that I've become and created in the past 12 months. So a lot of it was down to that call that we had middle of August 2023. So bringing it back to the present moment, Hilary, my question to you is this. If this call today were to be that significant, that it had that level of impact on you over the next 12 months, what would we need to speak about in this conversation today for that to be true?
We would need to speak about, I'm thinking in Spanish, I apologize. We would need to be discussing my story. I've played around with my story for the past year, and I have a number of stories, but in this past week, due to the workshops that you've had, due to questions that have arisen, due to upcoming work that I'm going to be doing in a company, it's been important to readdress my story and be quiet and kind of go back to. So I had taken one particular one and I recognized that I had a story that I've been living for almost 30 years of my life and I hadn't paid attention to it. And it was around education and my experience around education and one particular time during 7 years where that particular role was coordinator and marketing and sales were involved. And I'd completely missed that and had completely forgotten how valuable that was and is in order for me to work in companies because of the role that I played within the school. My responsibility was for accountability, for the importance of teachers understanding their roles in the academy as if they were doing their job to the best of their ability, that meant that students were coming into the school. So therefore, it was attracting, retaining, and helping the academy. And it was their salary, because if we lost teachers, and I didn't comprehend that prior to that because I had worked only as a teacher, but until I became school coordinator, I didn't comprehend that. So that is creating my story in such a way for all coaches that you feel really congruent, with that, and so that when you go to work with whomever you're working with, I think that's key. So if I'm looking at that, it's really making it a sound story so that whomever I go to work with in the future, I can pull from there and not from another place. I think that that's probably the most valuable.
Yeah, I love that. You said the word congruence. I love that word. Off air, before we got on, Hilary and I were talking about pain versus suffering. We're talking about Sadhguru. And those of you who are watching the broadcast will see I've had an allergic reaction, so my skin's flared up. And I was sharing with Hilary how not only did I used to experience physical pain when I had bad flare-ups to my skin, I also used to suffer, meaning I was incredibly moody and wouldn't go out, and really just created a story that reinforced that this was bad and life was bad, and basically just blew it out of proportion. But I found that through becoming more congruent, it enables me to not suffer. And actually, the reason why I'm sharing that is because I can now talk about the skin thing, as a story, just to kind of illustrate the point for you, Hilary. And stories are best when they're things that we've been through and have resolved. Because if they're stories that we haven't resolved, they can't be delivered congruently. If that makes sense. So it's only now that I can talk about that. So just to give some context for the viewers as well. So congruence. So my question to you at the moment, Hilary, is whether it's this story, this construct, or whether it's something at a bigger picture level, where are you currently not being congruent? Where are you currently living out of integrity?
When there's been severe discomfort in areas that I felt or have felt that are not in my capacity, therefore I wasn't. I go back to the story of my position within the school, and I went through physical discomfort during the time I was there, because I was trying to do too many things. I was given the responsibility of, I was spread thin. So therefore, I didn't go back to all of the positive things that had taken place until the couple of days ago, when I recognized, well, look, there were so many positive things that came out of it, but physically, I left that position because I was in trouble health-wise. And so I had to leave, and I had to request to move out of it. So I wasn't being congruent. I was, on the one hand, having difficulty, and on the other hand, doing what was being asked of me. So now if I stop to look at that, and I could take the positive things from it, I gained a tremendous amount. So I can look at the pain, but not the suffering, the growth that took place. And I think that part within a company, the growth can be painful, but you don't have to suffer. And so I think that for me is finding that's where I've been, where I wasn't congruent, where every time I'd see something which was uncomfortable, I thought, oh, it's going to be painful, it's going to be suffering, it's going to require work. And so therefore pull back.
Good. Hilary, what's life about for you?
In terms of what? Be more specific.
I'm intentionally being broad and ambiguous so that you can answer.
Okay.
So it gives you the permission, if needed, to answer as broadly or as narrowly as you wish. What's life about for you?
Okay. Life is about living each moment. First of all, being grateful for everything I have every day, that I've been given a new day. Sharing as much as I can with others, and learning to listen more and more. That's part of life. And always offering to help others, but also if they don't need it, learning that it's okay. So that's part of it. And then with my family, that's number one. You know, my daughters are very important, but also learning that they are individuals, and my job is to allow them to grow and give them their space again to do so.
Beautiful. Another broad and ambiguous question. What do you really want? Like really want?
Depending on the area that I'm looking at, number one is to take care of my health. And how is that? Well, sleeping, laughing, meditating, eating, being with friends, doing exercise. So that for me, especially from the beginning of coaching, from the beginning of signing up, I realized that if I didn't have state, I didn't have all of those things, I could throw everything out the window because it wasn't worth crap. So that's number one. Then another, financially, obviously, is something that is not a concern because I know that eventually I will get there. It's recognizing that I can, and I'm fortunate, I still teach English. And so therefore I have something that I can fall back on while I'm building. And so other people don't necessarily have that. And I paid attention to that from the beginning, make sure that I'm not needy in terms of going for clients. And I make sure that the other side, little by little, that's fulfilled. In the future, a partner, but that comes when it's supposed to come, not when I go looking for it. And spiritually, I do that daily. So I wouldn't say whenever I can volunteer in addition to give back as well and be available for myself and for others. I've learned that when it's too much, now I say, I can't. So I think I've answered more or less.
Yeah. Something I'm curious about. When you said about the partner, you said it will come when it's meant to come and not when I go looking. How is, in other areas of your life, how has that concept served you? Has it served well, not well? The idea of, because I heard that and I thought that's interesting. There's elements of that which I feel in alignment with, around waiting, patience, and not like the neediness that you spoke about with getting clients, right? And then I also thought about the side of the coin, which is intentionality, which is actually, I use a fitness analogy, which is if I wait for my health to get better, nothing will change. I've got to intentionally go out and work out for my health to be good. So I guess I wondered how that has served you in other areas, and if that is a strategy that you feel like, yeah, no, I want to stick with that, or whether actually in hearing it back, because it just flagged for me, and I thought I'm curious about that, as to whether that's serving Hilary the way that she wants in her intent to at some point attract a partner. I was just curious.
In the past, well, no, it's a good question. In the past, I had two very serious relationships, my ex-husband and then a partner that I was with for 10 years, whom I'm very good friends with. I recognized that my tendency was to put my financial needs, my desire professionally on the back burner. I tended to enter a relationship and put me second in terms of where I wanted to go because I wasn't clear either. Nah, that's intentionality as well. I wasn't clear on where I wanted to go. When I entered coaching, that shifted. I was very clear that this is what I want to do. It feels like home. And so therefore, the necessity to have a partner next to me right away, it was, okay, I would like to meet people little by little, get to know them. And if it works, fine. If it doesn't, I'm going to continue to address what I put in second place for so many years. So I just kind of have changed, and it's uncomfortable because there is a part wanting, but I said, okay, I also need to be happy here and not put that person as a substitute for my happiness, or expect that that individual is going to fulfill my needs, because that never happens. I have to do it with me. So therefore, I don't close the door to meeting and talking to people. But I said,
yeah, I love that.
I want to build the company also.
Here's my hallucination that I got when you were talking about that. I got the hallucination that previously in relationships, you were going in with a cup that was half full, hoping that that person would fill your cup.
Correct.
My perception of you now, Hilary, in the time I've got to know you, is your cup is full, and a partner would just overflow in a positive way that cup, but the cup is already full.
Well, it's definitely going there. It's definitely going there.
Yeah. I knew you'd say that. Yeah, it's good. Here's a question. What habits, places, people currently are draining your energy a little bit?
Draining my energy. One would be well, I'm going to go back to the financial. On the one hand, there isn't a concern about what's in the account, but I recognize that I'm also working on the house, and as things have changed, and I may not need to move because I may be able to receive funding to do some work on the home. But there are things as far as that, the concern, even though I also believe at the same time that what will happen will present itself. So I have a pretty strong faith in that area, but that is some draining, distraction. That, and the fact, another draining thing is the fact that I recognize it's August and I spend too much time alone. And so that drains, because I'm a people person. And so I like to be quiet, but at the same time, that takes away, having, when I walk the Camino, even though I'm alone, there's still so many people and the environment around you, and it just charges you. So being this amount of time here, that drains me as well. Not being as productive as I would like to be.
Okay. And what habits, places, people fill you with energy on the other side of that?
I'm looking at the possibility of finding a way to go sailing. Sailing or canoeing, that fills me up, being near the water, being in the mountains, being physically active. Definitely going dancing. So I'll dance in the house, but doing those kind of things, they fill me up with energy, laughing, and being needed to work on a project as well. Definitely. I have a new client and I thoroughly enjoy working with him. So that is a lot of fun, and that fills me up, being needed in that way.
Amazing. Let's go back to the beginning of the call. I remember I asked you what would make this an extraordinary conversation, and you were starting to share about story. Something that's coming up for me is and we haven't got into that. And if that is actually the thing, then let's get into it. But there's something coming up for me, which is like, if we go right back to the beginning and ask, what would make this truly a life-changing conversation for you? And then forgive me for not being able to paraphrase verbatim what you said about story. But I'm curious, is that really the thing that would make this the most extraordinary conversation ever? Or is there something else?
Well, in what you asked about being drained or being fulfilled, I suppose having those things as part of a daily routine. Whenever I've worked in a group, whenever I have, and it was funny because not that long ago I was speaking with a neighbor who's always very active. Not having that dynamic in my home as I did prior. I have an older daughter who's always working on projects. So being around an environment or being around people who are, they need you to work on things or they're doing that kind of thing, just charges. And that to me definitely helps with writing the story, with needing to do those things, having that kind of energy around and enthusiasm and the laughter and exchanging. Definitely that would make a big, and I did last year when we had a discussion about the workstation, about going to the office, I went in and checked it out. But it's still, in that aspect, it was more individual. It wasn't a dynamic where you're working on a team. So that element, BNI, fills me with the working on a team to a point that does help, and that's made a big difference. But it's being more involved in that aspect. I need to work with other people. I don't mean just as a coach, but work with other people and working the brain and being active and getting excited about creating material. Not just doing it on my own. I do much better working with others.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So let's talk about environment. If you could wave a magic wand, what would environment look like if it was ideal for you?
So the environment would not necessarily be a change from the physical place that I'm in right now. I would be okay with working from where I am currently, but it would be a group, possibly online, where I have responsibilities and I share in creating material towards projects. Definitely, when I'm involved with somebody asks me to work on educational material or asks me to do different things, being active in that aspect. It doesn't mean that I have to be in situ. I don't have to be there on site, but that I have a certain amount of hours or responsibilities to get in, that kind of thing. And definitely that would be my environment. I'm comfortable where I am. So I don't necessarily, unless I'm in an office with a group of people in the mountains that's fine. But it's working with others, definitely.
Yeah, good. So I guess my question, Hilary, around environment is, what's one simple I'm always a big believer in kind of 1 millimeter shift. So if you think about a golfer, the difference between him or her getting the hole in one and not is often a 1 millimeter shift for a big change. You may have heard analogies about aeroplanes taking off, and the slight variation in coordinates can send the plane to a completely different destination. So around environment, and you talked about this potential thing of group online, what's a 1 millimeter shift for you that you could make today, tomorrow, this week, that could have a great exponential result a year down the line?
Either, and this is just off the top of my head, looking for either a coaching group that trains other people, so that I could be part of that. Yes, because they could be anywhere in the world, but being part of that. So therefore I would be responsible for either bringing in people, training people, preparing, pre-framing people, framing people, doing the different things, preparing the things that are necessary, because definitely that would be something ideal. And I could do it in Spanish or in English. So
Great. Who do you know that you could talk to that could help you to maybe do that?
probably the gentleman I have in front of me, Mr. Miles.
We'll pick that up offline. We'll talk about that. Great. Here's a question, completely off on a different tangent, but this is the beauty of coaching in this way. I just get things come in and I just ask whatever comes in without really thinking about it. It's actually a question that my coach once asked me, and initially I didn't know how to answer it. But then when I thought about it, it really, really opened things up for me. And actually, it sent me down a path of kind of self-reflection that really, really served me. And for those of you that are watching on the recording, I really want you to consider the answer to this question for yourself as well. Hilary, what don't you want most people to know about you?
One would be that I would need help. And I've gotten better about asking for it, but that I would need help. The appearance of being self-sufficient. That I also have my moments, down moments. So I recognize and when I'm not okay, that I'm learning to at least talk to somebody and say I'm not okay. Gotten better about a lot of those things. Eventually, I know that there is, and I've had a couple of people say to me, you know, until we get to know you, there's so much more behind. So I suppose there are other ways where I can be more transparent about different things that experiences that I've lived throughout my life. So probably that would be another thing is, you know, working with someone and asking them to get naked with others, with their friends, and sharing and being intimate. And it's necessary to do the exact same thing as well, to say what I'm really, that's a big issue. And I have a girlfriend who's good about pulling my tongue, as they say in Spanish, to if I don't want to be in a particular place, many times I will go ahead and be there, but I'm not comfortable. And so that's something that would be honest as well, is to say when you're, that's not just making everybody else happy and being somewhere where you don't want to be, or doing something that you really, really don't want to do. So it's speaking up for the things that I'm not comfortable with. That would be definitely something else.
I feel inclined to do a process with you, Hilary. If you will, close your eyes for a moment. And I'd like you to imagine that standing behind you with her hands gently resting on your shoulders is you from a few years down the line. We're going to call her Coach Hilary. She's you, but she's been through some stuff that maybe you haven't been through yet. She's got some answers that you maybe don't have yet. She's resolved some things that maybe you haven't resolved yet. And she's come today just to give you some real gentle words of encouragement, maybe some tough love, but I think more so probably some words of encouragement. And she's gently resting her hands on your shoulder. In this moment, I'd love you to kind of tap into what Coach Hilary might say to you in this moment. I'd like you to speak it with your eyes closed, as if you're Coach Hilary coaching Hilary. What does Coach Hilary say? What does she say?
It's okay to be afraid in a relationship. It's okay to feel. It's okay not to be in control. It's okay not to know what's coming.
Are there any other final words of wisdom that you have for Hilary, Coach Hilary?
You've done your job already with your children. So you can now work on you.
Beautiful. Hilary, you can open your eyes. Anytime that you, well, if I speak for myself, anytime I'm ever feeling like I just don't know, sometimes I just tap into that inner coach that always knows the right answer, always knows what to say. I highly recommend if you don't have that process where you can remind yourself what Coach Hilary says. For me, it's just as simple as writing on a piece of paper and sticking it on your fridge or your bathroom mirror and just write Coach Hilary says. And then anytime you see those words and you feel like you need to know what she says, just spend a couple of minutes meditating, and then just I always have a notepad to hand. And then as soon as I finish the meditation, I just write down as if she's speaking, as if he, in my instance, is speaking to me in third person. What does Coach Miles say? So for you, it'd be what Coach Hilary says. I recommend that because there were some really powerful things that came out there, right?
Yes. Especially the last one. Yeah.
Sometimes in a coaching call, Hilary, I think it's really important to know when is appropriate to stop and take the client off the hot seat. I feel like as coaches, sometimes coaches feel like they need to fill the space and fill the time. They say that the session's an hour, or they say the session's 45 minutes, when, as often you may have heard me say, like, people don't really want coaching. What they want is to feel different. What they need is a change of perspective. What they really need is a different way of looking at their world, maybe through a different lens. And I think that Coach Hilary's given us that today. I feel that we could keep talking, but I actually feel that leaving you with those words of Coach Hilary feels like an appropriate place to take you off the hot seat. So Hilary, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thanks.
See you soon.
It's been wonderful.
Thanks. Thanks, Hilary. Thank you.